Everyone, Andy Barkworth here with On Path Healing Arts. It's been a while, kind of getting my feet wet again, down back into how this all works. It's been a while, like I said. So we are currently live on YouTube, and let's see. Yeah. So thanks for joining me. Whatever your day is happening here on a Sunday, we'll see what happens. I'm gonna go ahead and record this and see what unfolds. I don't know precisely what's gonna happen. We never do we? It's life. So Andrew Barkworth, Andy here, and here in my home studio with On Path Healing Arts. And trying to think of how long ago I started this YouTube channel. Got quite a few videos up there, and thank you to everybody who's been following and checking in and watching videos. I hope it's been helpful and useful to you. I kind of disappeared about 2 years ago. It's my first video since then. And I thought I'd share a little bit about Andy's world and let you get to know me a little bit differently than maybe through my videos and my training, which we'll do some in a little bit. We'll do some movement and some breathing, classic Andy and mobility kind of stuff. But I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey, and I know everybody's had a very powerful journey, lifelong up till now, and then also kind of dialing into kind of what's been up in the last 5 or 6 years since the COVID era, and what I've gone through personally, and how it's shaped who I am and where I am now, and what's happening next. So before I get into that, I did want to touch on some of the keys of life and living from what I've gathered and experienced. It's very simplified, and it's really about the 5 keys of our dimensional experience here on Earth as a human being. And those 5 key areas, we would talk about Earth, nature, energy. We would talk about, Chinese refer to as the lower dantian, the area around the pelvis and hips. But this is one of the key areas of physical power, vitality, health, life experienced, life in creation. And then we would talk about the middle dantian, the area around the chest and the solar plexus. And this would be the seat of love, or really where light, awareness, spirit meets love, energy, soul, and becomes what we experience in life. So what we would maybe call truth of existence. And then our upper dantian is the area around the head, and that would be throat, brow, crown, and that would be the area of mind, awareness. The level of thought, intuition, intelligence. And of course, every domain of experience has its own intelligence, its own domains of experience. But we would then also connect with spirit, or what you might consider your high self, or your cosmic self, or your super ego, super consciousness, whatever, oneness. There's all kinds of ways to talk about and describe what it is that initiates this life experience for us, and that is source, however we view that, the source of existence, God, divine, whatever ways we relate to it, but whatever it is that called us forth into life, into being. And as a human being, we experience these dimensions of spirit, mind, heart, body, and earth. And so, so in a sense, everybody's journey begins, at conception here on earth, and then we could always look back at this time marker, this experience in that situation as determinants and things that contributed to our growth, our life experience. And instead of trying to tell you my whole life story and get into all that, I want to talk about kind of going back to 2019. So, and maybe just briefly before that, just to give you an idea of my background, when I was 14, had an awakening experience. I didn't know those words at the time. I didn't understand those concepts, but I had an opening, what I called a realization, and went through a period of what you call transformation or integration, and then I had an actualization. I had an awakening or embodiment of that. And as much as I could gather from life around me, I made some amount of sense of it, and I was able to experience and sustain, once I got through the mucky, yucky stuff, the difficult, painful stuff, it was very blissful, very joyful, very free, liberating, for almost a couple of years. And then I just started to, as I was turning 16, things were starting to kind of fall apart for me a little bit. And that experience I had was no longer at that time sustainable in the same way that I was living it. And that was at the same time that I was introduced to Kung Fu, Wing Chun Kung Fu, through a friend of mine, dear friend, who has helped me and shown me some great ways over the course of my life, and has contributed to even what we're doing now here with On Path. Tommy Pemberton, a very powerful soul. And he and his brother were studying Kung Fu, and since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be a karate guy. And so I jumped in and fell in love, class 1, day 1. And part of that is Qigong, the energy skill, the practice of self-cultivation and understanding beingness and the use of the force, energy, qi. So long story short, that really began the next, that would have been 1991. So you're close to 35 years of study and training and learning how to embody, learning how to sustain, and using body movement and breath and awareness to really harness and cultivate a sustainable level of that awakening experience. And of course, we're all going through it every moment and every day throughout life. We have these little small incremental adjustments, through our body, through our life, our relationships, work, and all these different areas of our being. And then sometimes we have a spontaneous big thing, and sometimes we have a hard collapse. People call it contraction or compression, and integration, if you will, of what's been going on. So my journey really was inspired by this lifelong interest in being a karate guy. I don't want to hurt anybody, but I love to do the moves. It's great fun. And this people call it spiritual awakening, but becoming one with self and the universe, and what that experience is and feels like, and how it translates into how we live and who we are. And it's really all that's happening anyway. It's just we're experiencing different various levels of engagement, dimensions of experience around that process. And we'll talk more about that. The way I figure I've got about 30 to 50 years of stuff to share, that things have been gifted to me, that have been handed down to me through my teachers and the people that have shaped me. So it's been powerful support from my life journey, and so far from my local students and my teaching career of the last 20 plus years, and then also teaching at conferences and festivals and things like that. It's pretty good material and very useful. So I get a lot of good feedback that there's good stuff that comes from this. So where was I? All right. 5 dimensions of experience, and kind of a little background of how I got to where I am now. One of the things that I really just last 3 to 5 years realized is that, what was crumbling apart at about age 16, life became stressful again, and it was like, it was harsh again, confusing again. All this beautiful clarity and this divine, feeling of love and bliss, started to slip through my fingers, and my brain started to go really wild with it. So luckily for me, on my journey, I landed into a body practice, a body, mind, energy, spirit practice. Kung Fu, Qigong, a couple years later, Tai Chi. Yoga is wonderful. There are many systems, cultures that know all this stuff and more. So what landed for me was something that started to help me to organize my energy, organize my life, and probably a great deal of struggle, from that point on, to in a way remember to and I felt like I was trying to get back to a point in my life, this great opening experience that I had and got to experience for a period of time. And it's really not that it ever went away. It's just that there were still things that I hadn't encountered yet, things I came into this life to experience and to help me grow. And we do that individually, and we do that with each other, through friends, family, community, strangers. Everybody on the planet is contributing to this web, this mix of things that are happening and that we interact with. So, as I was grasping for something that would be helpful to me and finding Kung Fu and all these mind-body practices, it has really been, what has brought me to 2019. Back to that. Long story short, John on. All right. So 2019, I have had up to that point a fairly successful career in restaurant life. I was a sushi chef for about 18 years and fast food pizza before that for about a decade. And about 2018, I set down my knives and went in on my own. And while I was building up my teaching practice and things that I was working on, I would do a lot of handyman work on the side. I enjoy working with my hands. And so every time I thought, oh man, I have to go get a job again. Somebody needs their house painted or something would come up, and I would find my way. So that was 2018 and still finding my way. And in 2019, I was invited to teach at Panache Desai's Global Gathering here in Phoenix, Arizona. I had participated in teaching at a few of his events leading up to that. And my dear friend Tommy was ever vigilant in helping me create shirts and designs. And we had a good plan, and it was a great time and a great, wonderful experience. The people that attended my classes had a great time. That's where I encountered and met Dr. Sue Morter for the first time, who I've kept up with in her works. She's awesome. So before I continue with naming names of people that have been very helpful to me, just gratitude, love, and deepest respect to my teacher, Umar Sharif, aka Baba, aka Sifu Sharif. He has a beautiful presence on YouTube, Alakoso channel, and his playlists on martial arts and healing arts, and lots of videos in there, and also in his Ifa, in the Ifa tradition. His work is Oloranshe, or the voice of Ifa, and sharing of that spiritual and cultural tradition. So after getting hooked into Kung Fu and Qigong at age 16, 1991, 1993, I got into Tai Chi with Sifu Block, wonderful teacher. And in 1995, I met Grandmaster Sharif, and I knew that I was home, and I knew I was going to be there for the duration. And I'm still here, still hanging out with my teacher, still learning, still growing, and been honored with the carrying on of the lineage of the Seven Circle System that was founded and created by my teacher. And so I'm kind of the public receptacle of and transmitter of that, although my teacher still is doing stuff in the world. Some of that he's passed along, especially the Kung Fu. So that's one of my greatest joys and journeys, and consequently, right around 2020 when COVID hit, Kung Fu fell apart for me, and all my classes dissolved, and aside from my personal practice, I haven't taught it since about 2020, very little. So here I am showing up to the conference, great time, 2019, Panache Size Global Gathering, his biggest event yet, and I've been hanging out with him, following his stuff since about 2010. And when it was done, I melted. I was it. Tommy and I had been working hard on all these videos and all this stuff, and it was great. But I crashed, and I didn't stop working. I still have had people I was working with, private clients, coaching clients, so to speak. Still teaching locally, and teaching and sharing. That's about the time, maybe 2021-ish, is when I started doing a lot more videos on YouTube. And so that all that work that Tommy had invested in me leading up to that point, and all what my teacher had invested in me, and the things that I was really wanting to share, things that have been so powerful and helpful to me in my life, that wanting people to be able to partake and in that same similar experience, whatever's right for each of us. And so what needed to happen was I was still carrying some old energies around, like I'll be good when, I'll be qualified to do it when I've achieved this, when I've and there was things that, although a lot of what I was doing is very authentic to me, it was still being funneled through some old channels, some old energy circuits, pathways, and so really that was kind of a critical point. And for everybody on the planet, to some degree or another, subtle or great, COVID era has been a thing. It's been a thing, and for me, in large, a very very powerful time. Some deep stuff and some very very high elevated stuff happening there. So I melt down and dissolve working with Tommy. I'm like, dude, I'm done. Kind of retreat back into what I know up to that point, and having a good time, and still expanding and growing. In 2018, when I quit my day job, so to speak, I started building a kung fu school in my backyard. Didn't know what I was doing. Just had a feeling to do it, and went for it. And so that was well underway. Worked on it 2018, 2019, 2020. Near the end of 2020, I finished it to a first phase level where the project was essentially complete, and found myself waking up at the wee hours of the morning to get out there and work in the yard and build. And suddenly COVID's going on, everybody's retracted, and things have changed, and I'm still making videos and taking calls, and I'm living, and I'm doing, and I'm getting handyman work, and doing a fair amount of not necessarily caregiving for my mom, but checking in on her quite a bit, post a health scenario for her, and and just living life. And but it was a lot less intense than my early years of being a single parent and working multiple jobs and being busy all the time, and landing in this spot where all of a sudden, like, whew, there's a lot of space. And so I'm waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning, and so what I do, I started tuning in to meditation and qigong, things I do all day, every day, on and off. Small periods of time, big periods of time. But at that point, I had a lot more time, a lot less to do. So, I was getting in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of meditation and qigong and kung fu training and tai chi, and really kind of landed on a very strong daily practice. And I have very condensed, concentrated versions of that where I'll take a minute, 5 minutes to tune in and do my thing. My average morning practice is around 2 or 3 hours. And so, right about then, I did about 3 years. I might have missed a handful of days, but for 3 years straight, every morning, sometime between 3 and 5, I was up, tuned in, doing my thing. And so that was about 2020 when that initiated. And about a year, into that process, 2021, I went out to Dr. Sue Morter immersion retreat and had a pretty powerful experience there. And when I came back from that trip, I had come back to an invitation to become initiated as a high priest in the Ifa tradition, a Babalao, priest of mysteries. And that's part of the practices that I've been practicing and studying with my teacher Umar Sharif, Baba Sharif. That started maybe 10 years after all the kung fu and stuff, so maybe around 2005, 6. I started to dip my toe in the pool of this tradition. I find is probably, it just speaks to me. Whatever our faith, whatever our spirituality, whatever our interface is, whether that's science and nature, whether that's Christianity or Islam or whatever it happens to be, whatever our interface is, it's just a way of understanding, what it is to be alive, to experience spirit, consciousness, soul, and a framework of understanding that can get you so far. And because it's really all about our own personal experience of that and how we take that in and what we do with it. So so I come back from this trip, great trip, got to see some family in Northern California, and and I drive back from the Columbian River, Skamania area, if I say that right. One of the homes of Bigfoot, fun. Lots of big trees, had this really beautiful, sweet, healing, kind of a reawakening experience with Dr. Sue. We have tons of those. Some are really just a blink of the eye, we barely notice it, and some are big, spontaneous and very blissful. But every moment of life and living and change, is a moment to connect with the truth of who we are, and to then share that with existence, with those around us. So I'm coming back, and popped into my awareness on my way home, a 24-hour drive to the minute from when I left the lodge in Washington to when I arrived at my home in Phoenix, 24 hours to the minute. And I had planned to stop and sleep somewhere, but it called me to keep going. And I got to see a UFO. I don't know what it was, or a UAP, whatever it is. And I'm pretty sure I got zapped. I'll tell you about that sometime, but it was wild. I kind of felt like I was going to get maybe taken up somewhere, but that didn't happen. But on my way home, approaching Blythe, between California and Arizona is where that happened. Anyway, so I'm coming back from this trip, and my teacher's like, hey, when you're back, reach out. And there's this invitation to be initiated as a priest. And, if you had told me some years ago that would ever happen, I would laugh, I would scoff. I wouldn't believe that would be something that I would have felt called to to answer. And so for me, that was a yes. And turns out there was a spot, a couple weeks later to do this 3-week initiation, intensive process. And it was like, yes. And I still don't exactly know what it's all about, what I'm doing with it. We'll see what happens next. So that was yet another layer of development, of transmission of energy, of wisdom, insight, information through the culture and through the ancestors. And so here I am, a year into my every single morning practice, and then, continuing on for 2 more years, brings us up to pretty close to this time in 2023. And, I basically got a download during my practices and have very excited to share some new on-path methods, that really are rooted in, the decades of training with my teacher and everybody that I've encountered in my own personal experience and friends and family. It's a really combination, and this Ifa tradition has influenced it greatly as well. But I landed on being guided to it created itself, these 2-3 new practices. I've already started to share the energy flow set, and I haven't shared the energy meditation set yet. And there's another one, Golden Pyramid, that may come back out at some point in time. But it was really, kind of this culmination, of these things that I've been, studying and practicing, and sometimes, like Kung Fu initially. As interesting as it was, I was also very interested in self-defense and dealing, and being done with bullies in life and things like that. So there's different reasons that we gravitate to different people in different situations, and it's all to kind of notch us up and move us along these ladders, these dimensions of experience, of the energy, of soul, of life, existence, Mother Earth. Our belly, abdomen region, of vitality, of physical power, of what it is to be human, life as a human, heart, love, mind awareness, and spirit, consciousness, or however we perceive that to be. So, along the way, so I guess it'd be 3 summers ago, 2022, I was training with a friend, another Tai Chi instructor, TJ Fritz, and we're doing push hands, and it went too long. We weren't going very hard, but we were pushing each other around, and lo and behold, the next day, I'm experiencing a hip, lower back injury, probably a sciatica, intense nerve pain, and there was a moment of like, if only I had stopped sooner. Did TJ push me too hard? A minute or two of the what ifs and if onlys and could have beens. And then it was like, thank you for showing me where I'm stuck. And so instead of being able to translate and transmit the energy from our connections and our pushes and pulls and our movement, instead of having a clean line through my body to the earth, like, a lightning rod would ground electricity from the atmosphere, lightning into the ground, all that kept getting to my hip. Boom, boom. And we went at it for a while. And so that, in combination of my daily practice and all these things that had been opening up, that contributed to my development, if you will, of this energy flow set. Immediately I went into, okay, what's going to help me of the things that I've been taught, the things that I know and have access to. Maybe I don't know them yet, or maybe I follow instead of lead. What do I have access to that's going to help me with this? So I went right away to gratitude. Thank you for showing me where I'm stuck, and right into, okay, well now what is this about, and what can I do to ease it up, to quote unquote heal. What is in the way? What am I resisting? What change is afoot that I'm not paying attention to, that The universe has to smack me around a touch to get my attention on it. So this is about 2022. I know I'm kind of going back and forth a little bit, but also in 2022, just after my trip to see Dr. Sue and my UFO experience and my Babalawo initiation, one of the things I was struggling with is how to share my story of what happened when I was 14 with my parents. Sister and I were latchkey kids, 1980s, lots of time on our hands, 2 working parents, like many of our friends, and there was plenty of drugs around. And, so for me, I really enjoyed psychedelics, and that, that landed me in a situation, age 14, that was very challenging, and I'll share about that, but also led to a great opening, realization. What I called realizing my soul. I didn't know what else to call it. This is pre-internet. This is Dewey Decimal System at the library. If you're lucky, there's a book on anything that could help you. Probably not. I didn't know to look for it. So here we are, latchkey kids and doing our thing, and I get this, it's kind of reawakening, or this sense, like it's time, coming out of this journey, this trip, 2021, and so, how do I tell my parents without them making them feel bad? It's not their fault. They didn't know. I was good at hiding things. I didn't tell anybody it was happening. I didn't even tell my best friend or my sister that I was in this thing that was going on, because I couldn't. I didn't know what it was, how to handle it, and it was not clean. It was not fun, and but it was very necessary. And I'm sure we could all point to life experiences that are not clean, not fun, but were necessary at some point. And that helped shape us and help us make us relatable and relevant to life and people around us. Things that we're here to do and share. So here I am. What do I do about telling my parents? So I decide to. Actually, I was talking to a dear friend on the way home from my trip on the road, and she said, "Well, are your parents going to stop loving you?" No. If you tell them, no. The things I was afraid of, and how do I tell my story? And I tried to write about it a few different times before over the years, and didn't get anywhere. And so in January of 2022, I tell my mom. Shortly thereafter, told my dad. My mom was not interested in hearing too much about it, but always a good sport about things, and letting Andy be who he is, and loving and supporting me the best way she could. And my dad did the same, does the same. And within a day or two of telling my mom, during this 3 years of daily practice, pretty much late January 2022 till sometime in March. I think it was 8 or 10 weeks long. But that morning practice, I would start doing my thing 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning, and boom, write this down. Okay, so I'd break from what I'm doing. Most of the time when you engage in a meditation or a practice, unless something critical happens in your environment, you're trying to, or you're practicing, staying in whatever you've decided to do. Training the mind and our awareness and our attention, our energy. Like, this is what we're doing. Unless something major happens, this is what I'm up to. And I'm also listening to my body. If my body says, "Hey, that's enough," I can go ahead and stop. I don't have to see. I don't have to finish the whole practice just because I started it. But typically, we do as much as we can handle at that time, reasonably. So my 2 or 3 hour morning practice suddenly becomes 6 or 8 hours long, because I get into it and I'm getting called to go write something down, do that, and so essentially I wrote probably the middle part, or part 1 of a book, probably a series maybe, and so my my blockage of telling my parents, didn't want them to feel bad, and all those things, guilt and shame energies and different things like that, working through that. And once I let that go, 2022, it opened up this floodgate, it come, from a powerful 2021 and, opens the way. And then, a few months later, summertime, training with TJ, push hands, martial application of Tai Chi, very healing, slow movement, graceful, powerful health and vitality exercise. Basically, movement acupuncture. Qigong and yoga operate on the same functions in their own details. But the martial application of internal power through Tai Chi combat training, and I'm still stuck. Where am I stuck? In my hip. Boom. And so everything that had led up to that point, about a year and a half of this daily practice and this, this big opening, writing this book, this manuscript, and I haven't done anything with it since. I haven't even looked at it. I'm about to. It's time to go again. But, I had to work on the hip for a bit first, it seems. So I'm just like, get right to it. Thank you for showing me what's going on. Let's get to it. What does this mean? What am I working with? And so I called on some inner guidance and my teacher. How to approach this this injury, if you will, this activation, this opportunity to grow some more. Could tell right away his fear of moving forward. I was doing a lot, certainly wasn't idle, but there's a part of me that was afraid to reignite fully, if you will. And so, started, pulling in pieces of Qigong exercises that my teacher shared and sampled and played around with different things. Continued with my, one of the most powerful body, mind, energy practices that I've encountered, our home system, if you will, Fire Flower Qigong, which is based on the Ba Dua Jin, the 8 brocades, a very old and traditional, powerful Qigong practice from China. And Grandmaster Li taught my teacher Umar Sharif. And then when my teacher, as he moved into Phoenix in 1980 and started training out here, away from his source, his teacher's environment and other teachers he's worked with, he founded this adaptation called Fire Flower Qigong, which I'm excited to share. It's one of the things I'll be sharing soon. There's a lot to share. There's a lot to do. It's okay. One step at a time, one bite at a time. This is today's bite. So I'm excited. It's one of the most powerful things I've ever worked with. And one of the things I did for 3 years straight, every single day, I might have missed half a dozen at the most. You could miss more, it doesn't have to be every single day. It could be once a week, every, few days, whatever we can handle, whatever life allows, with these practices, we don't have to be subjugated to them and too hard and fast to like, I have to do it this way. Just so happens I had the time, I had the energy, I had the impulse to really hone in these practices I had been studying and teaching and practicing for decades. It was an opportunity to really ground it and bring it home to me, my version of it, because that's all we have is our own versions. Whatever we take in from outside of ourselves, whatever shows up from within ourselves, it's all very unique to each of us, how and what we do with each of these things. So here I am, there's some pretty profound and powerful life stuff going on, and this appearing of a setback physically. And so I started pulling in these pieces of different things, and I'm doing my daily Fire Flower, and I'm meditating, and doing all the things that I know of tuning into our true self, our energy, our spirit, and letting things move and seeing what happens. And so that was 2022, and that initiated the development or the unfolding of what's now a 3-part practice called On Path Energy Flow. It's got a name now. Okay, Energy Flow Set. And that's that completed itself nearly. It completed itself the first time. Probably the first 2 parts completed itself about 2 years ago, and then about a year ago, part 3 completed itself, and I'd be doing my thing, and then I'd get configured and guided into doing, add in this. So so I take these core practices from my teacher and from the ancient traditions, that have been made available to me, and I start working with them to open up whatever's going on. And so along that same time and process, I was also cultivating. I was kind of using a basic template of energy center meditation. That Qigong yoga. There's all kinds of versions of that, and other cultures, other methods of getting our subtle body tuned in, tuned up, and connecting into the physical and all those aspects of our human experience. Simultaneously, I'm doing this basic meditation, and actually guided by Panache Desai, one of my favorite sets that I've experienced. It's called Ignite Boundless Receiving by Panache Desai. It's 33 days. It's the same guided 45-minute meditation. It's an energy chakra meditation, and then followed by 33 different daily inquiries. So you do the same meditation, and then you do a different daily inquiry. You could do it 33 days straight, or you might end up on day 5, and the inquiry tunes you into something, and you might repeat that several times. So again, and to this day, still one of my favorites that he created, I think, in 2011. And I believe he has it available on his website somewhere. But very powerful. And so, I'm following, that was one of my daily practices I was doing, Ignite Balance Receiving. It's just something I love. And, but naturally, all along the way, since the very first time I encountered it in 2011, I do these little Qigong things, and I'm doing these little Andy things that I know that help, massage and move stuff. And so, all along, since 2011, so nearly, 14 years, I'm using this template, this beautiful guided meditation, very powerful, and didn't even realize I started building another system around it. And so that completed itself about 2 years ago. So here, 2 years ago, 2023, about this time, I'm thinking, I'm getting ready to launch this shit. I'm gonna do it, and I'm gearing myself up, and I'm still working through this hip thing. It's almost done. It's almost done. It's getting close. Yeah, I think some of the deeper things in life take, they didn't get there overnight, and they don't clean up overnight. It takes time. So, 2 years ago, getting ready to go again and see what happens. And I'm excited. I have these new things to share, and these decades of other things that are so profound and useful to me that I'm excited to share, and spend a good part of the summer kind of getting some ideas and infrastructure and some things set up. And my mother fell ill end of August into September 2023. Her cancer came back, and this time it was just about the end. so so I pulled back, so I dropped everything, pulled a lot of stuff off my website, and continued teaching locally and keeping up with certain people, and had the great honor to be able to live with my mom and be a caregiver over the last 3 months of her life. And her passing, and then anybody who's experienced that life lesson and journey, led on to the aftermath of that, and a very, very deep, powerful, and beautiful experience, the gift of my mom's death, and their family and friends and everyone's life that she has touched, and especially, of course, mine. I'm grateful for my mom and dad for bringing me here. I think there was a time I was pissed off that they did. What a bad deal, coming here to planet Earth. It's kind of fucked up. Excuse my French. It's sharp. It's painful. It's difficult. So it took me a while, maybe, to really embrace the beauty that's embedded in all those experiences that we would tend to want to get away from, avoid, skip, bypass, all the things we do. So, at this point, I'm very open, and I dive right in, and I'm, and met a wonderful person. Had about a year relationship with a beautiful, powerful woman, and shortly thereafter. And so, all of these things, all our life experiences, all the people that touch us, all the lives that come and go, and all the moments that rise and fall, they're all part of the recipe, the formula, the equation of this unfolding of life, existence as we know it. And so, here I am, June 2025, and I've had 2 more years to work on these systems personally. I usually spend a good deal of time with things before I teach them, so I know what they're like. And so I guess in some ways, I'm sharing a lot of gratitude for my family and my friends and my teachers and those who have devoted themselves, their life, their wisdom, shared love and experience that has contributed to who I am and what I'm here to do, and excited to share. I know I've been drawn on for some time now. I'm not quite how long. But yeah, so here I am, and it's time to get going. We'll see if the universe has a different plan. Last time I thought it was time to launch. It wasn't quite time. There was something else going on. But right now I'm feeling like this is, do what I can when I can. And so that's my promise to you. I know haven't been around online for a couple years. I've been with my local friends and family and students, and teaching at the community college up the road, and an amazing yoga school, Center for Divine Awakening with Hari Jop, welcomed me in 2 years ago. 2 years ago, yeah, May 2023. And so I've been teaching there. Beautiful, beautiful space. Kundalini is one of my favorite yoga styles. I know sometimes there's controversy around different styles and traditions and where things came from and how traditional they are and whatever. But let's not be confused between just like religion and other institutions and organizations. There's people and there's the essence of what's behind it. So from my experience, Kundalini yoga is probably one of the most powerful yoga experiences I've had. But it also relates to the things I like. So it's less important to get onto on path and meditation, qigong, whatever. Moving meditation, that was the thing that helped me the most. Took me a long time before I could get into the stillness stuff. So there's a lot going on in Andy's head, chewing on it. And so, kind of going back to Kundalini yoga, we've sample things. Some things we try and we really like them, we get right into it, and some things we bookmark for another day, another time, another phase in our life. Some things we try them and we're like, So hopefully, if we're one of the people that like F this guy, like I don't know what he's talking about, I'm not interested. I hope you moved on to something else already. I don't have the only game on the block, and this is just my journey, my experience, what's helped me, and I have so many teachers and contributors it would take me a long time to name them all, and that I have trusted with their wisdom, their experience, their teachings, and ultimately we have to apply it and see, well, what's real? Do we test it? As much I'm into spiritual stuff and all this consciousness stuff, and it's a science of its own. It's an art. I also love hard science. I love physics. I love chemistry. I love math. And so, it's like, what angle do we view things from? How do we perceive things? That's a big part of how we, take in like what's right for me, what's not. Of what I ate, how much do I absorb into my body and turn into energy and life, and how much do I release and let it return to the earth and become something else, right? So, I don't know if my point, I don't even know if I remember what point I was trying to make just now. So, but basically, like, with all this spiritual stuff, I do love the science. I do love, philosophy and good thinking. So wherever I was going with that, I'm gonna let that be what it is, because honestly, I can't remember right now. So what I've been working on, all these traditions. Oh, scientific method. I love to test things. So I really hope you don't take my word for it. Put it to the test. But just like going to the gym, you can't pick up a dumbbell, lift it one time, measure your bicep, and go, it doesn't work. It doesn't build muscle after all. No, you got to put some time and energy into it. But lifting weights isn't the only way to exercise. So maybe lifting weights isn't my thing, and Kung Fu is, or this or that. So find the things that work for you, and hopefully you have multiple go-tos, so that if it needs to be quiet and subtle and gentle, you've got something for that. If it's high intensity exercise and explosive power, boom, great. If it's working out, nature walks, whatever you're using to facilitate and maintain your wellness and all the dimensions of wellness and beingness. So whatever you find useful. And some things are, some things aren't, some things are temporary, some things are long-term. And so I really like to put things to the test. And I kind of was talking about where I had, kind of these practices had made themselves present to me. And so I listened, and I refined and I tuned. There's a part of me that would want to keep creating, because there's more you could do with it. But at some point it was like, done, ready to be shared. Okay, cool. And so that's where I'm at. I'm ready to, pass along what has been gifted to me from my teacher, Sifu Sharif, Gong Alan Lee, and all the other teachers that I've been graced to get to be with, and all the participants, all the students who have taught me immensely, that have contributed immensely to what I know and how I do what I do, who have supported me, all my my friends and my family that sometimes get what I'm doing, sometimes don't. My sister and I, we're same cloth. We love our own versions of this great journey of the cosmos, of creation and consciousness, life and love and light. So. Yeah, so here we are. It's what I've been working on. It's what I'm ready to share. Speaking of Panache, in Nashville this coming weekend, June 6th through the 8th, he's having an immersion retreat. I think it's on mastery. There's always a theme. I love to go. It's a great time. I used to go because I thought I needed something. Um, and now I go because it's fun to play and be with people and be with who I consider one of my teachers and mentors, Panache Desai. So I'm looking forward to being there. Uh, if you have a wild hair and you want to go, I'd love to see you there. It's fun. It can, you never know. It's rolling the dice. It's a gamble when you tune in to powerful things. Uh, it could be initially very uncomfortable and ultimately great, or it could be, rainbows and butterflies and a great old time. And sometimes, things come up and there's stuff to work through. It's a great experience. So I'm looking forward to going to connect with Panache and the tribe out there. Many people I've gotten to know over the years, and things I like to do. September of last year, got Dr. Sue Morter was in town. Got to go to her immersion workshop. Powerful experience. Not everybody can do these things, and I've done these things when I've had, only money in my bank was enough for bills, and it wasn't a lot, but I still felt the call, and I said, you know what, I can do this. I'm going to show up. So sometimes it might not make sense to people around us. Sometimes it might not even make sense to us, but if we get a strong impulse and it feels light and loving and the thing to do, even if it's in contrary to what appears to be the right thing to do, it wouldn't show up on a pros cons list, certainly. And for me, it's showing up at workshops and stuff where people are doing things I love to do, get to contribute and learn and grow and share what I do and things like that. And for others, it's, something entirely different. Go and check a museum or, a historic place or a national park, or it's different for everybody what that looks like. What does life at its best look like, and what supports that for each of us? For me, it's a great deal of the things that I love to teach and do and share. For other people, it's something entirely different, or some mix of. Some people come to Tai Chi once a week, and that's great. Some Tai Chi, great. They're not practicing every day at home. They don't need to. That's not on their mission. That's not their plan. But it's a nice thing that helps to maintain health and balance and longevity and energy balance and mental health and things of that nature. So yeah, other people, dig right in, and they're trying to practice every day and learn as much as they can. So everything in between. No right, wrong way to do it. So I'm going to go on this trip, and likelihood I'm going to put out like just a basic, probably do a fire flower set, a full set, a level 1 stretching, an introductory one time through without necessarily all the training behind it, but a guided practice on that. I'll do, I don't specifically have levels of the energy meditation, on-path energy meditation set. I have a feeling they'll tell me, it'll show up. I know what the final piece looks like, and it's intense, and it's not the place to start unless you've been doing stuff like this for a long time. So what I'll share publicly initially will be like a beginner level light experience of that meditation. I'm sure it'll show me how to go about that. So I'll do a video on that, and I'll do a energy flow set. I might not do all 3 parts, but I might just do a run through. It won't teach you how to do it. You'll be able to follow along the best you can, but it'll be an introductory level. And when I get back from my trip, and whether I do those videos before or after my trip, I can't tell you. When I get back from my trip, I'll share what my experience was like, and we'll get dialed into doing these things, doing these practices. Initially, I'll have some way for you to sign up for my Zoom classes that'll be complimentary, free, probably 1 to 3 a week, depending on what's going on. That I will start to dial us into these 3. I want to start with these 3 main sets. Fire Flower Qigong, one of the most potent, powerful practices of my lifetime. These 2 new sets, On Path Energy Flow, On Path Energy Meditation, so they have names now. And so part of our system philosophy is that this stuff is not to be kept concealed from everybody. There was a time where mystery schools and secret practices were necessary, but at this time, there's in our system and and following the footsteps of my teacher Sifu Sharif, there should always be a free access to this. So for us, before video and streaming was, free park practices. You could sign up for a class, pay for a class at the college, or private training, whatever, or just show up for a free training at the park. So part of my upbringing in this practice, and really mirrors my own heart and philosophy, is that we shouldn't be withholding things that are helpful to ourselves and to each other. Now, the level of a commitment, the depth, that may require an investment of not only time and energy, attention, money, some sort of exchange. So, yeah, some amount should be always available to whoever wants it. And really, I've got I think 111 videos on my YouTube channel, and they're all 5-minute to hour-long practices. I have them divided into playlists. I need to clean that up. I have too many playlists, but all the playlists basically categorizing the videos that I make into learning. If you want to learn how, there's a bunch of how-to videos that are, you can't ever capture 100% of what you know and put it out in one video, but it's all complete information. It's all usable, actionable material. Guided practice. Okay, here's how to do it. Here's how to practice it, or here's the experience of it. And then, one of my long-term friends and clients, she allowed me to share her training sessions that I geared towards her. So I have so many of these, hour-long or so videos of things that I was sharing with this individual to help them, with health and mobility and energy and activations and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of that stuff that's already there. There's more coming, and there's always going to be fully functional, actionable material that's available, and that you would never have to spend a dime, and you could go really far. And whatever we repeat, we become. So whatever it's one of the ancient traditions of mastery, apprenticeship of teacher-student, of seminary schools and other things like that. Is it only goes as far as you do something with it. And again, it could be like, I give it 1 day a week. I give it every other week. I drop into yoga. But I like to nature walk every single day, or whatever. Whatever your recipe is for putting, that together, what supports you and what makes you functional and fulfilled. And so, if what I share is feels like it's been helpful, it's certainly been helpful to me. And what I've learned as a teacher is that I'm really always teaching myself. So, thanks for showing up and being a part of it. And all my teachers and all my students teach me constantly. There's so much to gather and learn, and it's relevant and relative, to where we are, what we need, and what's going on. So there's lessons that cement, that I was given 30 years ago, a lesson on this, and thought I understood it, or maybe I didn't, or whatever. And then you're like, oh, that's it. Right? So sometimes things take days and weeks to set in. Sometimes they take months and years. I don't know. Right? It's different for everybody. I tend towards the incremental journey, the softer approach, because I've had the all in your face all at once. They made a movie, everything everywhere all at once. It was a good movie. It was an interesting movie. But that's what happened to me. I didn't have a lot of superpowers that I know of. But full dismantling, instant reset, and there's a lot of harsh stuff that was tied up in this the little antibody at age 14. And so, if we have a spontaneous awakening, or that would look like something major in life, is could also be an indicator that change is afoot. Things are happening. Things want to move. Injuries, accidents, significant new relationships, or the dissolving of significant relationships, things like that. Life is always, encouraging us to grow, and there are very kind teachers. There's a very soft, gentle way we can go about it. That's wonderful, powerful, wonderful. And there's some very harsh teachers, and globally, throughout our history, we've relied on some pretty intense, harsh teachers to show us the way. It's all good. It's all relative to what we need, what we came here for, what's our mission. You don't come to Earth with nothing to do. It doesn't happen. You have a mission. We have a goal. Mission Earth. Mission impossible. You come in, you get an Earth suit, right? You don't go to space for no reason yet. Pleasure even is a reason, okay? The pleasure cruise version of life is a good reason to come. But you get a spacesuit, a spaceship. You come to Earth, you get an Earth suit. A teacher calls it the flubber jacket. So you get a flubber jacket, like, this thing, I got this stuff, and it's got this interactive, operating systems, and I can sense things and interpret and indicate, all these different things. But nobody tells you how to do it, So again, your introduction into a bigger, higher perspective of life, higher perception, if you will, or whatever, could come with could start with a hard blow. It could be nice and gentle massage and beautiful unfolding of a flower. I mean, it's different for everybody. The end result's all the same. Whether it was a harsh teacher and a hard, difficult road, or the pleasure cruise and easygoing, nice, dance through the field with a beautiful sky, whatever that looks like, and probably a combination of all of the above. I tend towards, at least in the beginning, until I know who I'm working with, I tend towards, let's ease it into it. Let's make it something that we can absorb, take in, and something that's useful, but not too much, too hard. If you've ever stretched too fast and, pulled a muscle, or, snapped a tendon, or, something like that. If you've ever, or that's physical, right? Or, you take on something that's too much, and it, crushes you for a minute, or it leaves you lost and don't know what to do. Whatever that looks like. Those are all things that are encouraging us to grow. And one of the things that I came to understand is that there's nothing wasted, and there's no regret, because as long as I take the experience, whatever it was, and learn something from it, and then apply that as wisdom, as action, as another option in the way of life and living, then it served its purpose. And there's plenty. Could be headstrong, and there's plenty of lessons that had to come back again and again and again, harder and harder, till I was like, okay, I get it. I see it now. Thank you. So it's all good, right? We all come with a mission. We all come with a purpose. We have existential crisis around what that is and how to go about it, but essentially living our life is what it is what it's supposed to be. It's just learning to follow the energy flow. Does it want to go there? Or am I pushing into something that doesn't want to happen yet? Might feel right, it's the right thing, but might not be the right time. There might be other things that sequentially need to happen first before that's available, or available and sustainable. So anybody who's attempted something and it doesn't work out, it's not necessarily bad. It's just that iteration or that timing, maybe we had to learn something about it before we could do something with it at maybe a higher level. Or maybe it's just to realize that, there's something like it for us, but this isn't it, whatever that happens to be. So we get here and we're like, okay, well, what do you do? And, every moment of every day of our life is the unfolding of this existence, this journey of coming to Earth and being a human and experiencing, the eternal self as a biological unit, a human being, capable of all these amazing things, and family and friends, and even if you've been lonely your whole life, it's like there's powerful medicine, there's powerful lessons embedded in anything that we've experienced. And some of our vacation, planet Earth vacation from eternity packages include a lot of suffering, man. And some of them are vacation packages, and some of them are a little bit of both. So, whatever we signed up for, whatever we decided to come and do, that's what we're doing. And anything that that feels good and can help massage things. One of the things I like about having a body, mind, energy, meditation practice is that when stuff does come up, and it does, it never stops. When life happens, and I feel things, or something gets hurt, or there's something to contemplate, or a challenge to overcome, or whatever that looks like, that I'm able to work it out in my body, and not just go and I love fitness training, which is surprising. I like to play outside, but I wasn't a physical kid, not athletic, inflexible, couldn't touch my toes until my early 20s. Now I can fold myself in half, but it's taken me a long time to loosen up. But one of the things that we're here to do is to master the experience of being in a body. So if you're virtual consciousness, and you get uploaded into a robot body, or virtual reality, right? The goal of the game is to increase experience points and to pass the levels and do whatever that interactive system has to offer, so you could become a high level player. If you use video games as a reference, or gaming, or there's other ways to look at it. Any art, any discipline, really. It's a process of mastery. And so one of the things I like about having a body practice is that it's very responsive to, I know when I'm tense, stressed, tight, painful. This time last year, I was in so much pain in my shoulders and my neck, nerve pain all over the freaking place. Grieving my mom. I don't know what the future holds for relationships for me, and I found a wonderful partner for a year, and powerful, beautiful experience, and but also realized that at least at this time in that way wasn't for me. But everything that we encounter, experience, and take in and let go, it contributes to all of us, each of us. And, those kinds of things that we encounter, when it just seems hopeless and like, oh my God, I can't get more insane than this. Like, what the hell is going on? Everything's collapsing and nothing makes sense. Having In good times, developed a routine, a practice that now becomes part of who we are. We're able to, to tap into that, you know, um, whether it's super intense exercise and it's fire flower qigong, or it's super soft and gentle and it's sitting on a park bench, taking in the sky and the sound of the birds, whatever we're doing, but having a mind-body practice that helps to massage, the physical aspect, the chemical aspect, the stress physiology aspect, the neural connections and the nervous system and the myofascial network and all these beautiful ingredients and more that make up this dynamic system that we're in. There's something that has over and over supported my life, that I've seen support other people's lives, and that's available to each of us in different ways, in the ways that are right for us. And give what I'm doing a try, but give it an honest try, right? And if you're like no, if you know it's a no, it doesn't matter if it's great for 100 other people. Don't do it. If you're like nah, don't do it. Skip it. Come back to it another time. Find it somewhere else in a different version. If my voice irritates you, then you could thank me for pushing a button, but you don't need to hang out with me. It's all good, right? I'm not for everyone. It doesn't work like that. We don't have to be. So I'll show up more consistently. I was showing up consistently for a while, right? And life happened for a bit, and I'm feeling it's time to see what happens next. I have no idea. I have the support of friends. Tommy is on my side. We're going to start working on some things again. My teachers, friends and family, students, ever present. So yeah, hope we have a good time, and the good news is that you don't have to be a master of all this stuff, but you could use whatever of it that suits you to add to the recipe of what it's like to have a healthy, happy life. We often invest and think about our retirement and invest in money for the future when we're no longer working. And we put a lot of, when we can. Not everybody can do it. But there are probably fewer that spend as much time and energy and thought and consideration around investing in health and happiness. Like, okay, get to the point where you're done working, but if you finally stop doing all that push, pull, and everything falls apart, that's not fun. I don't want it to be like that when I get there. It's, for some people, they're able to handle that transition, and they're just as happy and more upon retirement. And there's a certain amount of people that fall apart, health or otherwise, right? So for me, when I've got, a small amount of money in the bank, and I feel called, this happened back in 2016. I had like $500 in my bank account. I had bills to pay, still single father, at that time. Yeah, Riley was grown. But, I was still in the energy mindset of struggle, single father stuff. And had just come out of my parents both having major health, life stuff happen shortly after retirement. And I'm just sitting there and like, I wonder what Panache is doing. I look him up, and I'd gone to quite a few, handful of in-person events between 2010 and 12, and then it'd been like 4 years or whatever it'd been, and he was in town the next weekend. Scottsdale's going to be in there for an event. an immersion weekend, and the ticket price was like $3.99, and I bought one. $100 left. I was already short on bill money, but I was like, I'm gonna do it. Right? I don't recommend being reckless, but I do recommend trusting that if you feel called to do something and it doesn't seem like it's doable, if you move in that direction, it most likely is. Or it will lead you to the next best, better thing that's available to you. And panache isn't for everybody. Not everybody loves panache. I do. Get a lot out of, that brother. He's my cup of tea, my kind of, and the people that gather around him, I enjoy. But I also love people of all kinds of backgrounds and cultures and ways of being. I think every person on the planet has a powerful, light and love that they are, and a contribution to us as a species, as a family, our ancestors, our descendants, and it doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes people play the bad guy or the bad character, the good character, or both, right? Depending on your point of view. But it's one of those things that, again, we sample different things, and some things catch us. I tried Kundalini yoga long time ago, loved it, but life didn't make it available at that time. And then, a couple years ago, I'm like, okay, I got this great Kung Fu studio in the backyard, great, but it's hot. It's Arizona, it's hot. And I don't think I could, with good conscience, keep inviting my students out to the backyard to train and melt. So, the first day it occurred to me to go look for a yoga school. I'd rented studio space at dance school for over a decade. But that dissolved with COVID, so I was without a satellite place to teach outside the college in my home, and prepared a letter, and visit, looked up 5 yoga schools nearby, created, made an extra copy of the letter, introduction, kind of resume or whatever of who I am, what I'm looking for, visit these places, and then on my way back, I'm like, Center for Divine Awakening, Kundalini School, Hari Jop's place, right up the road from my house, beautiful, powerful space. And so, I show up, and he happened to be in his reception area like an hour before class time. He invited me in, and on the spot, like talk about being in the presence of great teachers and powerful beings. I'm sitting there getting cooked by this guy, I'm like, ooh, talking philosophy and life and teachings and his background in Kundalini, but also background in martial arts, and always wanted to have Tai Chi person there, and loves Qigong, has read books and studied some of that. So he was more than happy to have me on board. And why I started talking about that, I don't know exactly, Kundalini yoga, but that, and then I was like, cool, this great practice that kicked my butt that I could probably only do half of last time I did it. And I was, fairly young, fit enough, Kung Fu guy, and, it was challenging. And so I got to, as much as I can. Sometimes, long periods go by and I don't get out to Kundalini yoga or other things that I enjoy. And sometimes life is where, I can do things frequently, and I get to do all these great things and go do sound, meditations and, whatever. My kinds of things I like to do, I do them fairly frequently when it's available and life supports that. Sometimes, days and weeks and months go by and I don't get to do that stuff. That's okay. But it's kind of one of those things that, and I know I've been rambling on, and who knows if any of this is of value to anybody, but I felt called to, break the ice and get on here today. So that's what I'm doing. And yeah, sometimes we get introduced to an idea, but it's to create, to plant a seed for something that's going to be relevant later on. It's not relevant yet. It's not time. Or maybe we get so far and we have to drop it because other stuff goes on, and then we come back to it, or something like it or different or better suited. So whatever the case, certainly we've all had a lot of big light, there's a lot of stuff going on the planet, and and the COVID era, and everybody's being tested. There's a lot going on, stretched and pulled and squeezed, and so kind of going back to mind body practice. Sometimes if I'm not paying attention, then life is the one that's squeezing me, pulling me, twisting me, and crunching me up, so that I can get wise to what's going on and what I need to do. As much as possible, I choose to do it in here. I'm gonna squeeze and stretch and twist and breathe and get it going here. Increase what is already available, what I've already created in my body, my neural connections and systems. Amplify, enhance that, right? Continue that journey. What I repeat, I become. Keep doing that stuff. And as stuff happens in life and I need to integrate it or absorb it or accept it, if I'm doing this kind of stuff consciously with breath and awareness, and if I do it here, then I don't have to have as many harsh teachers in my life. I don't have to have as many extreme situations. Certainly we don't live life without them. It happens. No matter who we are, how elevated we are, how deep roots, how deep we've set our roots, however well integrated human being we are, spiritually powerful or whatever. There's always life that's happening for us, and things that we decided we wanted to have experienced while we're here. And spirit and soul won't let us escape it. We try, but we won't withhold from ourselves the gifts and the treasures of life experience, even though once we're here, we're like, what? I didn't want that, did I? Sucks, right? But, there is some amount of internal peace that's available even in the harshest of experiences. And one of the things that I came to learn when I was walking down the neighborhood streets at, sometime in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep. I spent about 3 months sneaking out of my house every night, walking around thinking, trying to change what was going on. I had about 6 months of trying to, make my predicament not real and think my way out of it. Try to, so here I am, like many nights, sneak out, and I'm walking around living in a horror movie, watching crazy stuff going on, and just chewing on my brain, chewing on my emotions, just not sure if I was alive or dead, thought I was probably in hell. Probably was, it's just not in an eternal place, but it's a dimensional reality we can experience. However I landed in that, predicament, I was trying to deny I was in that situation, and I was doing everything I could to think my way out of it. I thought through so many subjects I didn't know they were subjects. I encounter them later in life. I'm like, oh, I spent time thinking about that. I didn't know what that was at the time. Didn't have words for it or a system or whatever. But here I am walking. And I don't know exactly the sequence, but it all happened within a couple weeks. But one of the first things that I did was I surrendered. I said, okay, fuck it, screw it. Pardon my language. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss, so I should probably stop cussing. I don't know what the things are with, yeah, probably no censorship on YouTube. So I'm like, whatever, like this is where I'm at, and I stopped trying to change it. I just accepted exactly where I was, exactly my predicament, that I was in total, utter confusion, no sense of reality, didn't know if I was alive or dead, likely in hell, I thought, might be already in eternal hell, torment anyway. And I said, okay, that's where I am. I surrendered. And, we can surrender 100 times, but until it's a core truth, until it's a surrender that is something that's not just a conscious thought, it's not an affirmation, it's not a cry of, oh, I surrender. It's not even that. It's something else. But when we come to that inner truth of like, okay, whether it happened that night or the next night, I couldn't tell you. I don't remember. It was on Turquoise Avenue, sometime middle of the night, and something landed, and it was boom. And I was this like brilliant golden light. And I don't know how long it lasted. Felt like a split second. And I knew, and later I said I realized in my soul, I didn't, I knew who I was. I know who we all, I knew who we all are. And it's this eternal light and love and this grace and this beauty, this power. And what I knew in that moment was that not even an eternity in hell could harm what we really are. So no matter what happens in life, no matter what torment we encounter, suffering, no matter what great joys and fulfillments and things like that, the truth of who we are is something that is so magnificent that words can hardly describe it. And so when this happened for me, and I had never heard of awakening and had thought about it and didn't know that the trouble I was in was leading there. Dr. Sue Morter calls it the quantum flip. And I accepted that I was going to be watching a horror movie the rest of my existence, and I didn't know if that existence was the end of my life. Maybe I'm still human. I don't know. Like, well, just in case, I'll still go to family dinners and finish 8th grade, and get ready for high school. Like, I don't know. I'm just going to keep doing that because I know for sure if I'm really still here, I don't want to be in an institution. I wasn't going to tell anybody. I knew that much. I also, it was quite possible that was the rest of existence. Eternity was this experience I was having. And so, surrendering and this opening, and and that's what I basically just wrote about in my book, the manuscript. I think there's probably about a dozen. Some of them are still kind of coming in and out, coming to me, but the things I had for decades struggled to remember. Once I lost, felt like I lost it when I was 16. When it started to slip away, and I wasn't able to sustain it and live in those states and those truths. When it started to get stuck and stiff and tight again, whatever life stress and things like that. I started to lose in a way, or forget, or not be able to sustain these really powerful things that helped me through that time. And and just like bam, 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 within a couple of weeks. It's about 2 weeks before I started high school, so the end of August of 1991. No, 1989. 1989. So it would have been around, I think I've got my math right. Yeah, 89. So anyway, so I was getting ready to go into high school and swimming in this really crazy storm. I'll share more about. I thought I would actually write about the story, and that started to happen. But in 2022, I actually wrote the things that I had acquired showed back up. These core lessons that helped me through my insanity, and but also it showed up as not quite a comparison contrast, but these things that happened to me when I was young that I reacquired in a way through my training with my teachers and the things that I've been exposed to. And so what I feel like what happened was, this initial experience, it wasn't the first time that actually happened. The first time that happened, it scared me. I was much younger and I blocked it off. But taking a bunch of LSD opened it up. I don't suggest taking that route, though there are a lot of studies, therapeutic use of psychedelics in the right situation. You want to make sure you have reputable, whether it's spiritual leaders in that route or a clinic. I don't suggest doing a bunch of stuff. I really don't. But that's the route I had taken, and many people have. I know there's a lot of people who share my story, and if not this, then some other version of it. Well, what I found was, what I was trying to reacquire that happened through this, psychedelic journey and this teenage thing happening for me, taking roughly 3 decades of study. And I found that, lo and behold, as this stuff is coming through my meditations and I'm writing about it, I didn't plan on what to start with and how to end it. I'm about to transcribe it to digital, so we'll see how it actually looks. Felt like it was pretty good when I was doing it. We'll see. But what it turned out to be was this map, if you will, this is what happened then. And this is now another version of that, and this is how it relates in the studies and the wisdoms and the traditions. So I do favor the soft approach, little by little, incremental journey. Make an adjustment in this area and let everything else reconfigure. Improve health, everything configures. Mindset, emotional balance, health, intelligence, spiritual connection, consciousness, awakening, energy and earth, and all those very simplified keys of dimensions of experience. Is that I found having it all at once is kind of a rough way to go if you're not ready. And there's people that have spent a lifetime in preparation. And then the moment happens and it's a clean, smooth ride and it's beautiful. Even then, even when you read people's accounts of these kinds of experiences that are very beautiful. Some people's accounts are very harsh in the beginning but end up beautiful. Some are very beautiful, but either way, there's a time period where until you acquire a new normality, it is weird. It is not entirely functional initially. It's kind of hard, challenging. It's strange, our perception of life and how things work and our relationship to our life changes so dramatically, so quickly, and it can be little by little by little, because some people that's the journey and that's beautiful, and that's what I tend to teach towards. Unless I know that someone's well prepared, then there's other things that we can do in terms of our practice and the intensity of our meditations and whatnot. But yeah, even that, even beautiful accounts of beautiful awakenings and just cosmic it takes some getting used to. That version of us that is eternal and cosmic does not flinch in the face of eternity, the infinite, the eternal. Right? It's no big deal. When I hit it, when I saw it, you know, it scared me. What do you do with that? That's a lot of time to fill. It's a lot, right? And I'm sure many of you can conceptualize that. You know, one moment of time is so vast that beyond, if there is some ultimate one consciousness, likelihood there is, a God, a source mind, might be the only way to comprehend what transpires in one moment of time, let alone a succession of moments in a lifetime, lifetimes. You know, so yeah, for me, like that there was a time period where it was very easy to be in that space and live that way. You know, midway through my 14th year to, closing in on 16 or something like that. It was very easy. It was fun. It was exciting. Every moment, every day, it was just this beautiful, powerful thing. And it didn't matter that there was still suffering on the planet, because not that we don't do anything about it, that if we can, that's part of why we're here, is to soften and create compassion and love and change. But it's like it's just a different relationship to it, and in its own way, it's all okay, and the great adventure of what life is and what we could get up to. But there is also a part of me that, especially by the age of 16, that had latched onto this idea of like, whoa, what do we do? That's a long time, and I got real busy, being real busy, filling up that space, things, doing stuff. And a lot of us do that, or distract and avoid. I've done a lot of that too. Anyway, I hope you've had a good time. Looks like this isn't an exercise video after all. I don't know what I'd say or how much, but I would say we're probably nearing the end. If it's your first time meeting me, I have no idea anything that I've been talking about and the practices that I teach. Check them out. There's a bunch of videos. There's some more coming, updated. Some updated stuff that's on its way. So I look forward to my journey to go visit Panache and the tribe, and whatever I do between here and there, and when I get back, look forward to sharing. And I hope you'll leave some comments if anybody catches this and wants to watch it or gets anything out of it. I'd love to hear from you. I'll respond as I can when I can. And I have a website, onpathhealingarts.com. And that website name might change soon, but that's where it's at right now. And there's lots of good stuff going on, and excited to see what happens next. Yeah. So let's at least take a couple deep breaths together. Let's do that. Well, hopefully you've been doing some other stuff than just sitting the whole time, but if you haven't been, go ahead and stand up for a moment. And if you can't stand, then stay seated. Everything we do can be done seated or standing. And this is just going to be to take a couple deep breaths together. Or if you're catching this on a replay sometime in the future, just tuning into your moment of now in your body, your breath, your awareness. One of the cornerstones of my studies with Sifu Sharif and 7 Circles is the 3 cleansing breaths. And I can't tell you how many hundreds of thousands of times I've done this by now, but I will tell you that even just thinking about taking a breath, just like my teacher described, like Pavlov's dogs, ring the bell and saliva, salivation for the meal to come, just a thought, just the first breath is enough to bring me into a pretty centered place. But of course, it can take time and practice for that to happen. So let's begin. Exhale, press down. If you can, breathe deep through the nose. Hold the breath in. Exhale and cleanse. If you can't breathe through the nose, breathe like sipping through a straw. Hold the breath in. Universal sound of relief. Ah, exhale. Like priming a pump. 3 deep breaths, gather. Slowing down the breath, resetting the mind, the nervous system, the body, and exhale. Just take a moment to soften. Feel free to wiggle and move about a little bit, whether you're standing or seated. Just feel into the body and feel what it's like to take 3 deep breaths. And so thanks for hanging out. If you were or you are later on sometime, peace and love, alafia, ati ife, namaste, and all those good, beautiful, warm wishes and greetings. Hope that this serves you, or at least maybe an introduction to a journey ahead. I might be a part of that, might be something somewhere else. All right, peace and love. And I don't know if I'm still live on YouTube. How does this work? How do we end